All right, there we go. All right, now the stream should be getting some audio. There we go. That's a little bit
Nice.
helpful.
It is helpful.
Yeah, it's been unfortunately one of the sagas and themes, I think, unfortunately for myself at St. Michael's Parish, as many of our parishioners know for the daily mass. It's been an ongoing saga of the no sound saga for daily mass. So
Not ideal. Not ideal.
we've been catching up. You know, our volunteers have been working on it, and we got that solidified. But I mean, what people don't know is that I'm at the center of it. You know, so I'm at the center of the no sound saga.
Public confessions.
Yeah. But in any case, you know, we better introduce the podcast before we get too much farther, huh?
I think so.
Yeah. So this is Region Catholic, and this is Chosen Podcast, of course, by Region Catholic, and I'm Father Jacob, and I'm joined tonight by
Adam Antone.
And we have the chance, of course, to introduce to you, to the parish community, a little bit of Chosen, a podcast that Adam and I have collaborated on now for the past several months. And it's really a chance to explore together the opportunity to really experience and explore our chosenness in the eyes of God, and explore a little bit of that in our vocations as well. We thought of this little idea, you know, to be able to do it because Adam and I were originally classmates, you know, in the seminary.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously I was ordained a priest, and Adam pursued married life, and he's currently married. Beautiful thing, both beautiful things. And so that's kind of been our little endeavor together. But before we get too much deeper into things, I don't know, what do you want to do to open up the episode tonight, Adam? What do you think?
Well, we're here in St. Patrick Hall at St. Michael Parish live. So, you know, I mean, in regards to Father, you're coming up, well, I guess in a few months on your first year of priesthood, and it's been spent here at the parish.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, like, what's been most surprising to you in coming to St. Michael? I mean, you've been in the diocese, you know, like, generally the different deaneries and the parishes and stuff, and so,
Mm-hmm.
but it's a different thing to know about St. Michael's and then to be assigned to St. Michael's living here amongst the community.
Yeah.
So what's been most surprising to you in your time here?
Yeah, you know, I mean, honestly, St. Michael's before I came here was kind of like the church tower from like 30.
From 30, yeah.
I mean, I had driven past it a few times, and I'm almost sure I've been in here because I met with a few vocation directors ago. I met with the associate pastor that was here, Father Mick Kopel,
Yep.
over in the office and in the chapel for mass a few times.
Okay.
And I mean, I will say, like, the chapel now is like 22 chairs, and
Yeah.
and then it was like 70. So
yeah,
like,
it's a little different now.
looking back on that, I don't know how all those chairs fit in there because I've only seen it with like 20 chairs.
Yeah.
There are like lores of story of the daily mass chapel here that had 70 chairs.
Hmm.
And anyway, I mean, I have a hard time believing it all fit in there, but I'll be proven wrong soon, hopefully.
It worked.
But nonetheless, you know, so I have been here. But really to get to know the people and the families and the reality of that being like the parish family and the school has been incredibly life-giving. One of the things that I think is temptation for a priest when they're out of the seminary is like, what can I bring to the community? You start to fixate on that, you know?
Yeah.
And really like the thing for me, that's not necessarily a surprise because I think we've talked about it in seminary, but the reality of what people give to you, you know, as a priest, just in terms of their own care and love and support, it's all been, you know, I've felt incredibly supported while I've been here, a part of the parish community. And so it's been great to learn how to be a priest here.
Yeah.
I don't think I've had any like colossal mess ups.
Well, that's good.
Other than using the rest of the milk and then not replacing it in the rectory. You know, that was bad. I should not have done that.
Public confessions continue.
I know, right? So hopefully Father Marty sees this and he really does see my legitimate remorse. I drank all of it over cereal. I guess I didn't really drink it. I ate it.
Mm.
And then I did not go buy another one. So, yeah.
I don't know. I mean, well, in terms of what you were saying with the parish, I think that's a really important spiritual lesson. I think that, you know, when we start to turn our gaze more towards the other versus ourselves, we're in a much better spiritual place. I think that relates to parish life in regards to the priesthood, but also in regards to married life. I know my own vocation as well. It's like when I start to turn my attention or my focus more towards Molly or her needs or her gifts and what she offers to our marriage and how she enriches my life, it helps me to gain a greater sense of who I am. So it's like
Yeah.
it's by taking our eyes off of ourselves and giving to another
Mm-hmm.
that we grow. So
Yeah. And I mean, that's the thing is that it's one of the great gifts of being able to live, in community as a newly ordained priest. Like some of my brothers and classmates, they don't have that luxury. And I mean, of course, like, there's the reality too of like you're living with another person, they have to get used to me. I have to get used to them kind of reality of living with someone. But then, the chance to be able to have the dinners, the fraternity, the community.
mhm.
I mean, it really is an incredible gift because I've talked to a lot of my classmates and they don't necessarily share in that gift or that reality of fraternity in their rectories with their pastor or really, I mean, with any priest, unfortunately. So there's something that's incredibly grateful in my heart that I can count on every Saturday that there will be myself and my pastor, Father Marty, and anywhere from like 2 to 4 other priests. Pandemic considerations, of course, observed.
Disclaimer.
Yeah, disclaimer, right? But the reality that we really can come together as brothers and enjoy each other's company and do it over a good meal and a good drink, and it's definitely that's also been, I think, a really huge part of early ministries that I think I've learned a lot about how to be a priest from the people,
Mhm.
and from my brothers around that dinner table. So, I mean, truthfully, it's been great.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. St. Michael's is a beautiful community. I have aunts and uncles who belong to the parish, and
Nice.
yeah,
Shout out.
my my grandparents used to live in Cherryville. They live in Chesterton, closer to me now. But I remember driving down 30, and yeah, it's the tower.
Right.
But and then when I was in seminary, I spent a summer as a counselor at the Share Foundation,
Mhm.
and I was there for about 6 weeks. But then there was like a month afterwards
Yeah.
where Father Mick Copel had me come to St. Michael's, and I lived at the parish here.
Nice.
Most of the time that I was here, though, actually, I think Father Marty was either on a retreat or something, or he was gone. But he was here for part of it. But then also, I spent a lot of time with Father Ted Mock, who now he's just down the road
Mhm.
at St. Joseph. So, but yeah, it's a really blessed community with the sisters, and
Mhm.
yeah, a lot of good memories here. So,
Yeah, and I mean that's like should definitely mention it too. Like our 5 in-house Carmelite sisters, the on the property, they keep me honest.
yeah,
It's good.
they don't take nonsense from anybody.
Yeah, and like I have 2 younger brothers, and so there's a lot of ways in which over this past year I've gained like sisters in the sense of like being able to enter into that friendship with Molly through you, Adam, and then also as well I've gained the sisters that are living on the property over at the convent at St. Michael's.
Yeah, definitely.
So I think it's been fun because I learned what tapioca is,
Okay.
and it's not just in pudding. So if the sisters see this, it's actually a vegetable that you can like mash up and eat.
Nice.
Did you know that?
No, I didn't.
I didn't know that either.
It's not my my usual go-to snack.
Yeah, I
But-
mean, it's it's. I thought it was mashed potatoes, and they told me before that, no, Father, it's tapioca.
Mm,
And I'm thinking like, oh, it can't be. What is like there's no pudding,
yeah.
And then we ate it, and I was like, these potatoes are good, and they're like, Father, it's tapioca, it's not pudding, it's not potatoes. And I'm like, there's no pudding.
These mashed potatoes are fantastic.
Well, and it was like, and they're like, everyone that we've ever really like talked to from the States, when we say tapioca,
Yeah.
they just think of the pudding.
Yeah,
like
that's true. That's the
it's
only thing.
actually this is what it is. I'm
Hmm.
like, well, I've never eaten a vegetable, so
The
no.
things you learn. Tapioca on a Tuesday. But
Anyway, I digress.
yeah, so I don't know, Father. I think that we were chatting before the show, and it sounded like part of our conversation, or the main part of our conversation, was going to be about the year that the Holy Father Pope Francis declared,
Hmm.
in it being the year of Saint Joseph.
Yeah, and we just kind of wanted to throw that out there for the coming Lenten season, but also the coming March feast day
Yeah.
of Saint Joseph, and then of course there's the feast day of Saint Joseph the Worker that is up and coming as well in May. So there's going to be a lot of different ways in which we can enter into this year and really celebrate Saint Joseph in that particular way. But I also just kind of thinking about it spiritually and thinking about him a little bit more deeply. Um, that's kind of one of the funny things about Joseph is that he was a man of few words.
Yeah, that's an understatement. I mean,
And to be exact, no words recorded in the Bible.
no speech.
That's kind of like his thing, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah. But it's awesome how somebody so instrumental to the unfolding of salvation history, uh, he concretely lived obedience to God, but he didn't have to say much to do so. Like,
right.
and I think to a certain extent that kind of speaks to his humility. Like, it kept the spotlight off him. Not to say that if you talk a lot in the gospel, you're purposely trying to put the spotlight on you, but like, I don't know. I think that that's an expression of Joseph's humility is that he made big moves, but he didn't necessarily have to say a lot.
Yeah, and I mean, it's kind of evident just in his whole living out. If you just look at the events of, how he lived and like how he endured them. If I was smart, I would have. We just talked about this yesterday with a few friends about the 7 sorrows of Joseph, and so I was listening to that. Don't worry, but I mean, if I could just be like intelligent enough to just like list them as I memorize them from yesterday, but I'm not that good. But there's definitely points in Joseph's life, whether it's like losing track of Jesus in the temple and then finding him, kind of like that suffering joy dynamic, as well as like the suffering of the like migrations that happened, whether it was like to Egypt or the flight from Egypt, and then the joy and relief of like, arriving to Egypt or being able to flee from Herod, kind of like this like joy and suffering and sorrow, like kind of like dichotomy that kind of goes along with him. And you can kind of see like his trust and perseverance in the sufferings, and then the exuberant joy. And you kind of imagine like, like losing your child, like, and I don't know. I mean, do you have any moments, or did you have any moments in your childhood when you got separated from your parents, or like when you got lost or something?
Yeah, my
So I totally asked this because I knew the answer. But anyway, please.
yeah, my dad lost me at a baseball game. I guess I can't say he lost me.
You walked away.
I
or?
wandered off, I guess. Yeah. So it was actually a really beautiful story. We got there a little early, and I wanted to go down by the dugout to get some autographs.
Of course.
And so
I mean, that's where it's happening. Now, mind you, is this a pro game or like a Railcats game?
this is a Chicago White Sox game.
So yeah, and how old were you?
I was, how old was I? Maybe like
I mean, like middle school, elementary school.
no, elementary.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So my brother went down. He's older than me. My brother and I go down by the dugout, and my dad went to go get some snacks. My grandpa was in the stands, and so we were doing the autographs, and then my brother must have like went back early. So then I was just kind of chilling there by myself.
Yep.
By the dugouts, looking to get some autographs.
And that's how it happens.
And then I turned around and I was completely disoriented, and I didn't know like where my dad was or where we were sitting. So I went up to a hot dog vendor and I said, I lost my dad and I don't know where to go. So then he was like, oh, okay, like I'll take it. So he took me to the security office at Comiskey Park. And then they did something over either on the board, like of the outfield, that said like I was in the security office, or like they announced it. And I just remember like sitting in the security office.
It's not funny. We're like the sorrow of Joseph losing his child, and then like Adam being lost.
At
His
Comiskey
sorrow.
Park.
Right. Yeah.
And,
Anyway, please.
Yeah, and then I'm sitting in the security office, and I'm just like freaked out because I don't know where I am. I don't know where my dad's at. And then I'm like, oh, when he gets here, he's gonna be ticked. And then
Where are you?
so he like I could see I'm in like a back room sitting, and like I could see the front counter. Um, and so I see my dad get to the counter, and his eyes are big. He's just like freaking
Oh
out.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And like he saw me in the back room, and so like we get out, we're walking, and there wasn't like much said at first. Like we were both just kind of walking, and I think our hearts were just both slowing down a little bit. And I was like, Dad, I'm really sorry. I didn't mean to get lost, and I hope you're not mad.
Yeah, then you had like a metaphysical like analysis of like you're being lost of your essence, you know. Yes.
No, but my dad said, I'm not mad. I'm just very grateful because
Oh, okay. So sorry. I thought you were gonna say
I'm just
I'm not
disappointed.
mad, I'm just disappointed. Like, oh, but okay. You're just grateful. Sorry,
yeah,
Mr. Antone. You're a good man. I would not have said that anyway. Please.
he just said, I'm just grateful that like I get to take you home. You know,
Nice.
that it could have
Dude.
been worse, and I get to take you home.
Nice. Yeah.
So yeah, I have gotten lost, and it was a relief to be found. So
Amen. And see, that's the thing of like, you can imagine like every other person, or if
mhm.
not more, has some kind of similar experience or has heard
Yeah,
directly from someone they love or care for about the experience of being lost, like being separated from their parents when they're kids or teenagers or whatever. And I mean, it's obviously a little different if you're like 6 compared to like you're 12. Like obviously that's different, but and I guess worthy of thinking like this was before you had a cell phone, presumably.
oh yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
years
like,
before.
right. So, I mean, I don't know. It could be a little different now depending on that, but there's just something about the ordinariness of like that situation.
Mm-hmm.
And then like you can see the Holy Family with Joseph being drawn into this ordinariness of this reality.
Yeah, I think that that's the beautiful thing about Joseph is that we can relate to him.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, he was not immaculately conceived like his wife, and you know he's not the incarnate Word of God like his foster child. He's a man, just like you and I. And
Right.
the other thing too, you know, you mentioned the Holy Family, and obviously whenever you talk about Joseph, it's like, you know, naturally speaking, you're gonna talk about the Holy Family more broadly as well.
Yeah.
I think it's really important to draw the distinction about the dynamic of like Joseph and Mary and Jesus, like the Holy Family. And, you know, a lot of times people like make the joke about, you know, all right, if something went wrong, it must have been Joseph's fault because like, you know, he was, you know, the only one that wasn't
Right.
without sin.
There's a dynamic of sin in the Holy Family, and it's not moving towards Mary or Jesus, right? So
Yeah. But I think like, and you know, we might hear about this on Holy Family Sunday, right? It's like, oh man, like it all must have gone to Joseph. But I think it's super important to clarify, you know, to clarify the dynamic of the Holy Family, because there are certain things that we think of in terms of family discord that are not sin, right? So like,
presumably, yeah. I mean, that's just kind of dynamic of life sometimes. Yeah.
yeah. So, you know, were there times that, you know, Joseph did something maybe like a little annoying, not on purpose, and Mary like got a little frustrated? Probably. I mean, it's
I don't know. No, I'm just kidding.
it's not a sin to be frustrated, right? Like it's
Presumably not. I mean, if you're moved to like, you know, want to kill them, that could be.
yeah,
you know,
it's
but-
like what you do with it, right? So,
right.
or on the flip side, like maybe Mary was chewing weird at the dinner table, and Joseph
That's not possible. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
and Joseph was like, Mary, can you please stop doing that? Like, that's like I can't stand it when you chew that way. Like, there's nothing sinful about that, but that's the reality of family life. And I think that, you know, in our ordinary ways of life, I think we're like, oh man, I can't relate to the Holy Family because I lose my patience sometimes, or I get frustrated.
Mhm,
It's like,
mhm.
yeah, those things aren't always necessarily sins. It's like if you get frustrated, punch a hole through the wall and start screaming at your family, then that's a different story.
That could be sinful, I would say.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
definitely not ideal.
It's
So-
it's in the realm, right? I mean, yeah.
It's in the ballpark.
Right. There could be sin there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I think that's important. Is that it's not a fake ordinariness. Like the ordinariness of the Holy Family is a real one. Like, there were beautiful moments that they shared together. moments of excitement, meals together,
Yeah.
playing together. But there's also moments where like Jesus crying meant that Joseph didn't always sleep like the whole night. Like he would have to get up and he would be like, "Oh, Jesus, like come on, just go back to sleep, like
Mm,
let's just calm down."
that's a nice helping of ordinariness right there.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah.
Diapers and
Mm.
just like I don't know. So, yeah, the ordinariness of the Holy Family is real. And I think we do ourselves a disservice if we pedestalize it. Is that a word?
Place it on a pedestal, I think is what you're looking
Correct.
for.
Yes.
Yeah, that's okay. That's cool though.
Yeah, just
Pedestalize.
make it up.
There's a picture of Adam next to it with the attribution to the word. So good deal. Nice.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
No, but I mean, there's something really cool about. I just kind of like picked this up in the past like couple weeks and was reading about it. It makes me sound like I read a lot, but it's an illusion. Anyway, it was.
how many coffee shops do you go to?
I mean, unfortunately, like we were Starbucks guys at Mundelein.
Mm.
We'd go there once a day as part of the Starbucks run,
Nice.
Monday through Friday, or like 4 days a week. It was a really good it really was a good fraternity thing, community thing with the guys I went with. But
yeah.
it was hitting hard on the pocketbook. I will say it's expensive. But now they're all closed on the inside.
Yeah, it's a total
So-
bummer.
Yeah, but
Anyway, you were saying you were
Yeah,
about reading a lot.
yeah, like buzzsaw, like buzzkill. Anyway, no, there's a thing I was reading about the chance to be connected, in a multitude of different ways of like offering up or engaging in the reality of like remembering that we're sons and daughters of God, engaged in our senses in some way at all times. And then also as well, being able to offer up a multitude of different things that we experience in our day-to-day lives that we can offer up to unite ourselves to Jesus on the cross. So it might be something more. The second thing is probably something that'll be a good spiritual thing for Lent. But I mean, there's like unpleasant things that are a part of family life. Like you mentioned the chewing thing, or like particularly cleaning up something that you don't want to do, like that chore or the dishes, or and to like offer it up and like do it well.
Mm.
I mean, like that right there, that is huge spiritual grace.
yeah.
Like, I mean, I don't know about you, but like if I don't want to, like I remember growing up, like if I didn't want to load the dishwasher, then I would do it poorly.
Wow.
I mean, it is like,
So father's a little passive aggressive. Nice.
but it's like the classic thing, like because I know it's like I know mom will do it.
Did you slam the dishwasher door when you were done and just like stare him down? You just like slammed it.
No. You gotta play it more subtle than that. I mean, if you're, like playing the role.
I'm not a big passive guy. Like I'm pretty direct about things. I'm not one, like you'll know how I feel about something.
Yeah. No, like it would just be like, it's like, all right, I know my mom wants me to load these bowls this way, so I'm gonna do them slightly off.
I'm gonna have it so that they face up and fill with water in the dishwasher.
Not that bad. But
Close.
yeah, right. No, but I mean,
Dishwater soup waiting for you. Okay, we're taking this too far. Go ahead.
yeah. Anyway, right? Yeah. No, but there's this like, but something like that from the perspective of a son or daughter, and then like even as like a parent too, like you can fathom that there are a multitude of ways in which your children will annoy you.
Oh yeah.
Like whether it's like unintentionally in the sense that someone's getting frustrated with like the crying baby, or like in the family home, not like a crying baby in public, but like your children,
Sure.
and I mean recognizing that there's not to be like guilt or shame drawn from that, like the parental failure or something, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
But rather just a chance to draw in deeper into like the God's patience and trust and like sharing in the reality of being a parent, with the Holy Family. There's all of those experiences kind of drawn into the life of Joseph, in that experience. So
One of the things that I think about as you were sharing that is obviously throughout the Gospels, Jesus is going to a private place to pray. to be alone with his Father in heaven, but also like, we were talking about in the beginning, like chosen is about, all right, how do we recognize the way God chooses us and loves us in our daily life and
Mm-hmm.
calls us, and how do we best respond? And like Joseph wasn't just a happenstance. Like Joseph was, called by God for the mission and role that he lived out. And, the Christ child would have learned from Joseph. I mean, that's the radical humility of God, is that he chose to humble himself to share in our humanity and learn. And the Gospels talk about growing in wisdom and obedience, to Mary, but also to Joseph. And, one of the things that jumped out to me, we were talking about the silence of Joseph in the Gospels. And something I was thinking about last week, it was a particularly stressful week. And there was some things going on with work, but then we were also trying to figure out some stuff in terms of housing and everything. So it was like a very full week. And I was like really kind of stressed out. But it was a beautiful moment because I thought like, okay, this is an opportunity to serve Molly. Like this is an opportunity to like, really serve and like put myself forward for our family, right? By doing these extra things. The problem was that I would note that I was stressed, right? I'd be like, oh man, I'm so stressed, or I'm like, like complaining about
the classic, yeah.
yeah. And one of the important details of the gospel of the passion narratives is the detail that they talk about is that Jesus, as he was enduring the passion, he opened not his mouth, right? Like, and so Jesus, when he was dying for the sake of his bride, he wasn't like, you see what I'm doing? You see what I'm this is for you, right?
Yeah,
he,
yeah.
He just died. He died.
Mm-hmm.
And then he rose to new life. And so like I feel like that was a wake up call for me. Like, it's not, oh, complain the whole way while you're dying. Die for the sake of the other, die to self, and then, move forward in the newness of life. But the reason why I share that story is because I think that Jesus could have learned that quality of silence and obedience from the example of his foster father.
Yeah.
I think
Mm-hmm.
Joseph could have been that instrument of teaching. And, I mean, I can picture Mary talking to Jesus when he was younger and being like, yeah, like when your dad and I had to go to Egypt, like I was, you were just born and I was a little nervous, but your dad, like he was resolute about it. And he, just went forward, and he
Yeah.
was,
Mhm.
and so I feel like, I don't know, the silence of Jesus amidst the challenges of his life is reflective of Joseph's own silence amidst all the adventures that God called him to.
Yeah, it's interesting that you kind of connect that, because it's almost like this this like prophetic reality of the greatness of what Jesus is about to be like unfold, and like the prophetic reality of like how there was so little said by him, but yet the greatest of deeds, and so often we think of and so little by him in that moment, not like he didn't say anything in the Gospels, but in that moment of his suffering, and then to endure that. And then also too, there's the tradition though in Eastern Catholicism of Joseph as the prophet.
Hmm.
And it's kind of like this. When I first heard that, it was like, really, like he didn't say anything. So it's like, exactly, he was a prophet through the life of his deeds, of how he did and how he lived and how he acted.
Yeah.
So there's a way in which I don't want to say this, but there's that quote that's misattributed to Saint Francis
Right.
of Assisi.
Right.
Misattributed. He did not say it. About preaching the gospel when necessary, or preaching the gospel
When necessary, use words. Preach the gospel at all times, and
when necessary, use words.
Yeah.
Right. The botched quote that we just did of misattribution to Saint Francis, but in the sense of the radicalness of life in that moment of Christ, and then also in the lack of words of Joseph. I mean, there's something to be said about saying nothing, but then accomplishing some of the greatest deeds for the sake of the salvation of the world, from the person of Christ, and Joseph's contribution to that through the grace of God. So,
The other piece of that too is you're talking about Joseph doing these great deeds, and it's recounted in the Gospels. what one thing that I love about Joseph is that he did the great deeds, but he never had the full picture, right? Like God, there was never a point where God sat down with him and said, "Okay, this is the blueprint for the next however many months, and like you're gonna have to go here, and then you're gonna have to go pick up and go here." And I remember Joseph, like as they're going from place to place, um, he has to set up their home. He has to then find work. He has to like establish the family, and there was never God gave Joseph enough information to know the next step. And then in making the next step, he would come to know what the next step would be. And so I think that um, there's definitely a lesson to be learned there that for those of us, myself, definitely, like there's this desire like, okay, Lord, you tell me everything, lay out the entire plan, and then I can do it, right? Like, but you got to give me the full picture first. But God doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
And so there's just a sense of like act, live, and live into the mystery. That I think is on full display in the life of Joseph.
Mm-hmm.
So
One of the things I wanted to touch upon too, when I was before being a member of the Diocese of Gary of the clergy, in the sense of being ordained a priest. I said that really weirdly. Sorry, but before being ordained a priest for the diocese, before being a member of the diocese, of
what
the
are
clergy,
you saying right
yeah,
now?
like what does that even mean? Gosh, but before being a priest for the diocese and before discerning, and preparing for the priesthood, with the diocese, I was in the Dominicans. What?
I don't know how many times you said diocese in that sentence, but
Oh, probably a lot. Diocese. Yeah.
diocese. It's a good word. Anyway, but you were with the Dominicans.
Anyway, before all of this, I was with the Dominicans, discerning with them in their novitiate, and there was a brother that came and gave a talk on celibacy, and like the gift of celibacy and the charism of celibacy. The reality of that priests and religious, including brothers, sisters, monks, what have you, take on the practice and the commitment of living a celibate life. Not marrying, not having children, and he said that for many celibates, in the sense of those entering into these things I talked about, there's kind of the expectation in our culture that we're going to get married, you know? And he said that Joseph, in that expectation to marry, and in that expectation of that relationship that he thought he was going to have in a particular way, with his wife that he expected, it was kind of God's plan, redirected that reality. And so too for many celibates, there is an expectation that just the cultural reality and natural reality that we'll get married, you know. But then there's the calling and the response to the celibate life, and the reality that Joseph, he lived in this relationship with Mary, as husband and wife, but not in the sense that we'd understand it with the marital relationship. But there's this reality of expectation, and then change that Joseph adapted to, and so in that sense, he's kind of like a model for celibates to follow. That if there's ever the pain or the like loneliness or what have you of the reality of the celibate life, then Joseph is a wonderful intercessor and a power of prayer, but also too as like the model of living, having expected to live like normal,
Mm-hmm.
and then kind of those plans ebb and flow and change, and then him respond to them with the grace and the virtue that he did.
I think that speaks volumes to the unique person that Joseph is. How many saints or how many people can be role models to the fullest extent to both the celibate and the married vocation? You were talking about that degree of an example as a celibate. I think it's Saint Jose Maria Escriva who makes note like that. Aside from the Blessed Virgin and obviously Christ, but the greatest saint was of the church was a layman, like in Joseph, because like he wasn't a rabbi or a scribe or like a Sadducee. He wasn't one of the first priests. Like he was a layman, and
Right.
like that whole sense of what we've been talking about, like the ordinary and like family life. And so I don't know. It speaks to the depth of the person of Joseph, that he can serve as an inspiration and as a model to both the celibate vocation in the priesthood and religious life, as well as the married vocation and being like a husband and a father, which I guess makes sense as to why Pope Francis was like, hey, you should pay attention to his life. So
Yeah, I mean, quite nice timing. I mean, in terms of, kind of emerging from the pandemic. I think also too. I mean, like I don't know if it's like a epidemic in the sense of, the word of it for other cultures around the world, but at least in the States, there's kind of like this growing, like crisis of fatherhood and like
yeah,
identity. And I mean, not only like I think the crisis and identity of like what it means to be a man and like masculinity, but also as well about the identity of the father and who a father is and what they do, um, and like who they can be and who they're called to be. I mean, those are kind of the things that I think also speak to us in this moment as well. Kind of emerging out of the pandemic and coming out and having the chance to kind of, behold, I make all things new.
yeah,
you
amen to
know.
that.
So
Um, yeah, and I think Joseph is the patron of the Universal Church. Joseph. One of the coolest names for Joseph is the Terror of Demons, and
nice.
so in this year of Saint Joseph, whether you're a celibate and you're looking to his life as an example, or someone who is married and looking to his life as an example, another way that you can look to him for guidance or for help is like, I'm not necessarily saying in the form of possession, but we all have our demons. We all have our own challenges and sinfulness, and maybe there's that sin or difficulty that we can't seem to kick, and we need to instill some terror in those demons, and a way that we can do that is by calling on the intercession of Joseph. So I mean, one of the greatest beauties of Catholicism is its understanding and theology of the communion of saints, and the way that we can continue to love and support one another in our journey, and in our struggles, for those of us in church suffering and militant. And so calling upon Joseph to be a protector in the way that he was to Christ in his earthly life. Well, he's a protector of Christ in the mystical body as well. And so calling on him intentionally, I think, could be a great benefit.
Yeah, I think the cool thing too, and kind of mention this before we start to kind of wrap things up, but the cool thing about like the terror of demons or like protector, universal patron of the church. I mean, these are all kind of they elicit the reality of like like true manhood, like manliness. And there's this statue
Mm-hmm.
of Joseph in Wichita. I believe it's in the cathedral. I went to see my friends get ordained transitional deacons out there, and this statue of Joseph, this guy has like, I don't know, like 14-inch biceps. I mean, it's like incredible.
Jack Joseph.
I mean, he like it's kind of it's borderline like disproportional to like the rest of the statue. But I mean, it's like he's huge. Like his chest is big.
He's
got
been
big,
hitting the weights.
yeah, and like it kind of points to this whole thing about like that Joseph. When we think of Joseph as like this like feeble like old man,
Mm-hmm.
like that was like all crumpled up, or and that's kind of sometimes the portrayal of him, that because of the reality of like the relationship that he did have with Mary, that
Right.
they did not engage in marital relations. That then he had their explanation is like we had to have been like an older man kind of thing. But so many saints have rejected that portrayal of him. That authentic manliness can be lived out in like youthfulness, and also comes with purity and that whole reality, and that can also be associated with like strength and like Joseph the carpenter with like big muscles kind of thing. So
Yeah.
all that can kind of come together in one person and reside in one person if we truly believe that like holiness is real, and like it's attainable with God's help.
Yeah.
So that's kind of another, like, I think of that image, and I'm kind of drawn to that picture of him.
Yeah.
So
Me too.
yeah.
Um, But speaking of coming together, I think we're starting to wind down for our live stream here at St. Michael's.
Yeah.
And so if you have not checked out Chosen the podcast, we want to encourage you to do so. You can check it out on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or anywhere you find podcasts. We finished season 1. There's about 14 episodes up there, I think, now. So if you haven't listened, catch up. Share with some family and friends, maybe over the Lenten season. Might be good. Check us out on social media through Region Catholic on Instagram and Facebook and all that good stuff.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. Sorry for the little bit of a late start if you've been with us for the duration of the time. There was a little bit of a late start, and then we kind of ran over to, so not exactly our 7:35 proposed end time, but it's 7:53.
There you go.
So good enough. All the same numbers are there. But on that note, then we'll go ahead and wrap it up. And looking forward to following and seeing if the reality of having you join us on this next journey of the upcoming season. But until then, God bless you.
God bless.